Okay, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what CRUK does on the information it gives out and how it presents itself and what improvements it can make. Here we've got some pictures of the earlier fundraising campaigns it did on barbecue to beat cancer. We saw that other organisations followed on promoting barbecuing. Now CRUK have got a vegan challenge for a month, but they keep talking about ham. Anyway, I'll come on to that in a bit. So here we go. This is what CRUK can do really well. It can put together a really powerful, strong marketing material for health professionals like pharmacists or doctors or nurses on helping, giving advice on how to help patients make a change. In this case it's to give up smoking. And here we go, obesity's, as you know, on the rise. There's finding that more and more cancers are associated with obesity. Talking about the whole problem, that it's not just you can't just have a pill or you can't just exercise, you need a whole community support. Anyway, it talks about that. Lots of good detail here. What I did find strange in the guide is couldn't find the word fruits, vegetables, whole grains, fibre or beans, and obesity, as we know, is linked to food. So of course what food we eat is important. So let's have a look at the public. That was healthcare professional information. So we're just going to look at what they hand out to the public. Got one I'm interested particularly on eating and drinking. That's what we're centering on here. So we've got a page. I've opened up the page there, and a bit more detail. So it's 8 pages, and we can see there's 3 pages there. It's okay what they say, but it's, I don't know, for me it seems a bit empty. It's not a healthcare professional pack. They've just said how powerful nurses and pharmacists can be at changing patients when they come to help, changing eating habits. Be good to give some advice. Okay, let's look at the web. Maybe they just want the patients to do it themselves. So you can see here that smoking causes about 15%, 3 out of 20, just okay. And the claim, seems a strong word there, but it is a claim. 1 out of 20, or 5% of cancers is caused by unhealthy eating. Anyway, so on the website there, it's got a few pages, simple graphics. Let's just have a look. And here we go. So diets, facts and evidence, and it's important that we've got to be evidence-based, and here they're looking at fruits and vegetables, how they may reduce cancer risk, and they talk about which cancers it can reduce and why. That's all really good. Some good references as well. And then they also talk about red meat and bowel, how it can increase cancer. It's well established and known now. 3 out of 20 bowel cancers in men, 2 out of 20 in women. And they go down the list, and then they say there's no strong evidence that eating white meats such as chicken and poultry or fish can cause cancer. But there is some evidence, I think, that kind of implies it's just a lower risk. Okay, and let's look food controversies. Now, this is an interesting one. Soybean, beans contain fibre, contain protein, low in saturated fats. They're healthy. They're a good food. They also found some studies which can particularly lower prostate cancer and stuff. The thing is that CRUK say along the list that because it's in Asia, people eat more soybeans. What they eat here wouldn't be enough to have any effect, and so they don't put much detail about it. Beans are also good at relieving weight gain. Obesity as well is one of the leading causes of cancer. And then we talk about the controversies about milk and dairy, which many people may have heard of. So the problem, of course, with milk and dairy is that it's one of the highest sources of saturated fats and trans fats in the UK diet. It's also calorie dense, which means that you don't need much to get lots of calories. Obesity is a problem in the UK, leading cause of cancer. We're not short of having the guidelines are about having 8%, and at the moment the UK have about 14% of their calories come from dairy consumption. Now there's a little talk on hormones and milk. The hormones come because the cows are pregnant when they're being milked, because they're on a rolling cycle, and it's thought that hormone issues can, particularly in adults, we don't need those changes of hormones. We're not growing anymore. We don't need IGF-1 growth hormone in us. We're going to come back to dairy in a bit. Okay. So, CRUKs. It always seems to be coming in on the side of processed food and meat and processed meats. And to give an example here, we've got a quote here by a professor, one of their staff, talking about risks. This is from 2015 when the World Health Organization put forward a story, though it was an established story, that red meat and processed meat causes bowel cancer, but they do a big picture. Don't you love everyone loves a fry up? People shouldn't worry about the news, carry on, maybe just cut down a little bit. Gives a little joke. Unless you work in a banana factory, then it's not going to be a problem if you slip on it. It's just a risk, anything can happen, carry on as you are. Well, that's how I take their message. Okay, let's look at the risks. Now, this is one of the big things I've been studying at the moment, and let's just have a look. So there's almost 42,000 bowel cancer cases per year. We're having to use 2015 data, but there is a slight change over time, but nothing too drastic. And here we've got some infographics on the left-hand side from CRUK's data. And then we've got what I'm saying on the right-hand side. Oddly enough, the references there also come from the CRUK's website, and they've allowed me to determine, so I've used the CRUK's processed meat numbers and risks, and I've then been able to use the references that CRUK supply on their website and work out the risks and hazard ratios and how many people it affects. And then you add the sums together. Now, there's a little interesting bit. They don't quite add in the way that you count your money. So they're a bit like adding bean bags or piles of pillows that they compress for higher of a stack. And so you don't quite get a linear count, a one-for-one count. Anyway, so there we go. So instantly on their website, we've got this kind of disjoint. Now, interestingly, in 2016 here, they actually talk about the 8,800 cases, but that's not on their website. I didn't find it on their website today. That was on their Twitter feed. Okay, the other thing that we've got is how processed meat can affect breast cancer. So all in all, when we stack the breast cancer and the red meat on the bowel cancer, we're coming up to, adds together, and it ends up with about 11,500. Now on their published data, they keep talking about, okay, it's processed meat, but red meat, it comes across, it looks very much like it's 5,300 cases. And so it looks to the public, unless you hunt around, that it's an underestimate of about 6,000 preventable cancers per year. Okay, let's look at bowel cancer, reducing bowel cancer by fibre. So here they've got a good statistic here of just under 12,000 for people not eating enough fibre, and we don't. We have about 28-30 grams a day. Some people eat as low as 12 grams a day. However, we could talk about fibre, or we could talk about where the fibre comes from. Now, fibre comes from whole grains, comes from veg, comes from fruit, comes from beans, and together we call that a poor plant diet. Okay, when those are lacking, and you can see each one of the cases. So you're getting 6,000 attributed cases for people not eating enough whole grains, wholemeal bread, and things like that. And then 3,000 for low veg. This is only bowel cancer we're talking about, and fruit, which are almost 3,000 again, and beans 3,500. And so, you know, a little bit out. These numbers can be so CRUKs are 1,700 difference there. Okay, let's have a little look at the power of fruits and vegetables again. This is a table that I used to help calculate all results, and you can see that we've got the mouth, the throat, the stomach cancer, the lung cancer, and it's quite significant really in what veg can do, particularly greens for lung cancer and greens for reducing breast cancer. Really important, and all of this is missing off the CRUK's website. And beans again, we saw about soya beans, but we can also say that it's other legumes as well, like kidney beans and lentils and things like that. They will get classed there. 6,000 prostate cancer cases could be alleviated. So that comes up to 43,000 cases, which just aren't on the CRUK's website. So they do have fibre, 11,700 cases there, but all in all, they're missing 31,500 preventable cases a year. Ultra-processed food. Now this is an interesting one, because of course you would think ultra-processed food, well, we've done processed meat, so that's kind of the sort of same thing. But again, in the journal it's talking about how sorry, I just just had to think back to the last one. So this came out in February, and the last one came out in October. We were talking about processed meat for breast cancer, and this one is now talking about processed food and breast cancer. And of course there is. Now let's just have a look on the next slide here. We've got a little bit of the overlap. So in the same study it spoke about processed meats, and what we see is that processed meats only takes up 5% of processed foods. Most of it, of course, is sugary drinks and packaged bread and things like that. So that's where most of the calories of processed food, or ultra processed food. Most food's processed, but this is about, you know, that really big packaged, heavily sealed, long shelf life kind of food. And so here we go. We've got 17,000 cases. Another nearly 5% of all cancers. Not on CRUK's website. Okay, milk and dairy. Now, it's an interesting one. Bowel cancer works out that there's about just over 2,600 cases by having milk, not cheese it turns out, but milk, can reduce that. Downside is that it produces or causes 8,500 prostate cancer cases, and also non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a white blood cell disease or immune system, and that's going to cause 2,200 cases. So there's some good bits of milk, but there's mainly bad, if we look at it in that way. So again, There's a 8,000 to 2%, 2.3% increase in cancers. Okay, so let's have a look at this all now. So we've got red and processed meats. We've got low plant diets, and not just fibre. We've got ultra-processed food, not recorded on CRUK. We've got dairy, not 8,500, not recorded on CRUK. Combine all of that together, we've got 68,700 cases, preventable cases, by people not eating, by eating a healthy diet, following the Eat Well guide. So let's just have a look on how this compares. So in total, so we've got CRUK saying that there are about 135,500 cases, or about 38% of total cancers are preventable. And yet the calculations show that it's 31,000 more than that. Of preventable cancers, more than that. That's almost 5 out of 10 rather than the 4 out of 10. That's 46%. So it's talking, big numbers. And also the other thing, I think it's on the next slide here, is this bit more detail. Let's see if we can go back. Let's break it down. So when we can look at the diet, in fact, actually, we can see that poor diet, 19% of cancers. Poor diet, being overweight, lacking exercise, 25% of cancers. Smoking, drinking, sunburn, exercise, it's just 21% of cancers. Not eating enough fruits and vegetables, 12% of cancers. That's almost as much as tobacco alone, 15%. It's double of being overweight. Okay, breakdown of the numbers. Okay, so let's go back to this claim. Remember this claim? So smoking causes 3 out of 20 cancers, 15%, and the claim was that if you ate better, 1 out of 20, 5% of people wouldn't get cancer. But that's false. It's 4 out of 20 won't get cancer. That's 19%. Okay, and when we're saying healthy diet, we're meaning whole grains, we're meaning beans, we're meaning greens, we're meaning fruits and veg. The diet could contain some dairy, some fish in small amounts, occasional meat, a small portion of ultra-processed food, a bag of crisps a day maybe, nothing too much for you, biscuits, but, it's food to be limited. Processed meat, avoid it. Okay, more information on the Eat Well guide. So let's just go, and so here's the chart again. So we've got to remember that a healthy diet with a healthy weight and 30 minutes walk a day or so is 5 out of 20 cancers could be prevented. And so if you're worried about cancer, for instance, you've been diagnosed, you've got family history, or you are overweight, or you just want to improve, you want to make yourself even more cancer survival, then following a low-fat, plant-based diet is one of the best ways to lose weight and lower your cancer risk. Because it's not just about losing weight. You can do all sorts of different ways of losing weight, but you want to lose weight and be healthy. Just being thin or just crash dieting, it's not enough. And we've got some information here put together if you want to follow the link. Right, let's have a look at what people are eating. Okay, so what we can know is that we've I didn't put the link in, I did, yeah, the nutrition diet the National Dietary Nutrition Survey, calculated along with a really useful article from a couple of years ago when they were updating the Eat Well guidance. And they were able to compare what we eat and what we're eating now. And they produce reports that come out every 2 years, and from that you can work out what the third of the population that eat the most of, or the least of the fibre, or the most of the sugar, or most of the meat. And so we can see what the average is, and then we can see what's being consumed on the top third. And so we can see that 15 million adults exceed every recommendation that's made. Too high in salt, too high in saturated fat, too high in sugar, free sugar. What free sugar is where the sugar's been ripped away from the fibre. So, of course, white sugar, table sugar, all that. Fruit juices, some citrus. Citrus had a page which I didn't use. Citrus is pretty good as fruits go. We saw that fruits are very good as an anti-cancer food. Citrus make up the bulk of that effectiveness. But of course, just pure orange juice straight from the jug is too much sugar floating around. We've got cholesterol, so 15 million adults are having effectively an egg and a half a day, which is just raising the cholesterol over the level. They're having the advices for national guidance is to have 70 grams of red and processed meat a day, or have no more than, and kicking over like 124 grams of red and processed meat daily, 12 grams of fibre, and just 1.8 a day of portions of fruit and veg a day. There's about 80 grams in there, so it's 120 grams or so. That varies in that group, but not by much, not even by half a portion. Milk, of course, we spoke about milk earlier, so the guidance is to have about 8% of calories, no more than 8% of calories of milk, and now of course we can have dairy alternatives. So the conclusions came from in doing this is that prostate cancer is not listed as preventable, despite evidence saying that bean and legume consumption would have significant benefit in its prevention. Beans are also shown to reduce the obesity, as well as helping prevent heart disease and other metabolic. They help stabilise the glucose levels in the blood, so they're really good. High dairy consumption, that's more than 3, maybe 2 portions of 3 ounces, tiny little blocks of cheese a day. And this had a major factor in prostate cancer. And so it's got to be said that adult men, this story of saying you've got to have your calcium, for adult men, you're adults, you've made your bones, you just need them to stay strong. You're not shedding anything. So, the calcium that you get from greens is plenty, and beans contain it as well. And of course mixed with citrus when you eat it, it's good. Fruits and vegetables. So we know that people aren't eating enough fruits and vegetables. The average is 3.5, but we actually know that a third of the population is just barely having 1.5. So that's less than 2. Red meat does provide a range of nutrients, but however it does increase cancer risk, and I just don't see why they're constantly encouraging. People will eat it if they want to eat it. They don't need CRUKs to say it's okay to eat it. CRUKs need to be saying it's not okay to eat it, especially if you worry about cancer. You can get your energy, you can get your proteins all from other sources. Processed meats, it's beyond me why they ever did a barbecue promotion. Don't get it. Ultra-processed foods. Now, it's a wide range of foods, ultra-processed foods. You could argue that it's your chips from your chips. You could argue that it's some of the bread rolls that you eat, or it's in your cakes, or it's a lot of food out there, and a lot of it's really quite tasty. And so the thing is just to know that it's not healthy and to limit it. And if you're worried about your health, then you limit it a lot. If you're okay, you're not feeling ill, you're not feeling energetic and all these sorts of things, then just make sure it's limited. Okay, so is there any more risks to be avoided? Well, there's all sorts of cancers out there that we're still going to work on, and I'm going to try and get these numbers. Prescription medicines. We know that medicines cause cancer, and we know that paracetamol affects the lining of the gut, so it's interesting on that effect. We know chemotherapy is used to fight cancer, but it's carcinogenic. Now the question is, in the case of chemotherapy, what's going to kill you sooner? If chemo is the thing that kills the cancer before the cancer kills you, then it's a plus. But, it doesn't always make chemotherapy the best choice. Poultry meat, they were saying no strong evidence. Now, there could be some evidence that not for bowel cancer, but maybe for some leukemias and blood cancers and things like that. Artificial sweeteners. Now, this has been the holdfast of the obesity strategy. I think the problem with the obesity strategy is centered around keeping people eating things that make them fat, meat and oily foods. Maybe that's an issue, but are they affecting the microbiome? Does that upset of the microbiome then cause problems and then have an indirect cancer risk? They checked it for toxicity. It doesn't appear to be toxic, as in like a poison, like arsenic or something like that, or mercury. But maybe it causes an imbalance in the microbiome. Farmed fish is quite intensively reared. It's hard to know about regulations, and we know that plastics in the ocean is a big story at the moment. Big fish eat little fish eat plankton. Plankton live off the plastic, or live around the plastic. Little fish are eating plastic. And then, of course, there's viruses. So every time that you get struck down by a virus, it's breaking your DNA apart. And your body's designed to repair itself. That's fine. But, of course, the concept of a virus is it doesn't just wear down your DNA. It infects you. It uses your cells to self-replicate itself. So CRUKs are good on promoting viral infections for things that they've then got a pill for, but maybe they just don't want to scare people. I don't know. Okay, that's the end. I'll just put you on my last slide here. If you're worried about it, there are things you can do. You can massively reduce your cancer risk by making sensible lifestyle changes. Changing your diet is more effective than giving up smoking. Giving up smoking and dieting can transform your life. Dieting is the wrong word because it sounds like slimmers and stuff. Changing your diet, eating ideally a plant-based whole food diet is the way to go.